Hello, everyone. My research topic was corporal punishment in America and in our schools. Um, the first thing I need to address is what is corporal punishment? Corporal punishment is using physical force or or paddling, spanking, pinching, pulling hair, anything physically causing harm as a disciplinary measure. So, for us, talking about children in school, that would be using a paddle, which is more traditional, or using a belt, even using your hand. And the history of corporal punishment in America is a little iffy to say the best. When we think of corporal punishment, we think about how slaves were beaten, how indentured servants could whip their or masters could whip their indentured servants. Whenever people were put in stockades, people could throw stuff at them, hit them, do all kinds of really mean things to them. Jail guards used to be able to beat prisoners. Ship captains and officers could beat sailors. School teachers are still actually allowed to beat students, and a Supreme Court ruling in 1977 said that it was still legal to beat children as long as the state said it was all right. So right now, 19 states say that beating children is considered, or 19 states say that it is okay to beat children, whereas 31 states, Puerto Rico, and DC say that it's considered assault. So for the most part, we've seen a decline in it, but it's still very legal to beat children, which is kind of messed up because it's illegal to beat prisoners. And that needs to kind of sink in for a second, that we can beat children but not prisoners. But what does this mean to us? Why does it matter that we have corporal punishment in schools? It matters because on a psychological level, it's actually been proven to not work. Corporal punishment creates an immediate change in behavior, but it doesn't create like a sustainable correction. What we see is that if an authority figure or a parent or somebody beats their child or beats a student, they see that whenever that person is around, or whenever the child thinks that person is around, they tailor their behavior, and that's not the desired effect. They want a child to actually change. Well, if this doesn't work, the alternative is something a lot harder to deal with whenever most people have been beat or spanked or something by a guardian or an authority figure in previous years. The alternative is actually to not so much ignore bad behavior, but to kind of let the little stuff go while addressing the big stuff and encouraging good behavior. So if a child wasn't sharing or something like that, or pitched a little bit of a temper tantrum, we wouldn't necessarily go all out and yell and cause a problem. We might provide like a timeout or something like that. But what we would do is we would encourage good behavior much more often. And what we start to see is that instead of getting that attitude tailoring, kids seek approval and seek that encouragement, and they actually want to do good things. So instead of using corporal punishment, many psychologists have said we should encourage good behavior, but also look for the underlying issues of bad behavior. We should sit there and try to investigate. We should try to sit there and say, okay, this child is acting up, and he or she keeps acting up for in the same way, but what is the reason that this kid is acting up? And try to pinpoint that and correct that problem. What also we see is that we don't know a child's home life right away, but we kind of get a good picture of it. So what the school's purpose is to kind of sort of be a safe haven for children, to sit there and allow them to have a place to come where they feel welcome, where they feel like they have support. And if they're receiving physical harm, or if they're being physically disciplined at home, they don't want to come to a place and open up to their teachers, their counselors, their principals, if they feel like they are also going to be physically harming them. So my stance on corporal punishment as a future teacher or as a parent is, even though I was spanked growing up and I feel like I turned out just fine, I think the statistics weigh much heavier in the other direction of encouraging good behavior while addressing bad behavior in a much more constructive way.